Whoa, we're back? What?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Wi-Fi is Out with your two hosts, Eros
And Double T.
Today, we have a big, probably pretty long double slam of Diablo IV and Baldur's Gate 3 information.
Even though that game's coming out in 3 days.
Hey, dating this episode? You're not supposed to date the episode, man. Nah, you're good. But we're going to start with Diablo IV because with the new Season 1 that started not too long ago, we have been spending less time on it than we did in Season 0.
Yeah.
Pretty noticeably.
I am not impressed with Season 1 so far.
So Season 1 came out not too long ago, essentially. And we were, I would say, relatively hyped for a Season 1, you know, because there was going to be a whole bunch of new content, information about like the new storyline, the new feature, which is Malignant Hearts, which we'll get into, some of the changes, like buffs that were supposed to happen to classes, nerfs that were supposed to happen to like content that was a little too hard for just casual players. We were excited for that, but unfortunately, right before Season 1 got released, they did a giant nerf to damage across the board for every single class in the game, without reducing the difficulty and, you know, like, damage of the enemies, which made it very difficult.
I'm not gonna lie. I know I'm the weakest link, and they just made me even worse as a team player.
As our three-man party, yeah, they made you a lot weaker, but they made the other two of us also really, really weak with our builds. They reduced the main forms of damage heavily, like vulnerability alone, just by 40% reduced damage, which is one of the biggest damages like a rogue does. So that happened right before Season 1, which gave every single player pretty much, I'll say the majority of players, just because, you know, maybe there are some people that didn't necessarily care or whatever, but the majority of the player base was very unhappy and voiced their unhappiness to the devs. So there was a couple, what they call campfire talks, basically addressing this.
They just feel like they're talking down to us every time I listen into it.
I can't even watch it anymore. I have to watch someone else talk about it.
I'd rather watch YouTubers talk about it now.
Yeah, because they definitely feel, it just feels like they're, like you said, just talking down to us, and it sucks. But we got some updates. Well, we got a patch, which made some of the classes, you know, bounced it out a little bit. We're getting a patch that's coming up soon that's going to buff all of the classes a little bit more, specifically a couple, namely Barb and Sork.
Let's get one thing straight. By balance out, they mean making us do less damage. They don't raise the abilities of other stuff. They basically make the favorite builds do less damage.
So that the non-favorite builds.
Instead of making the enemies tougher, more health, they make the classes weaker.
Yeah. Which they are coming out with some adjustments to make enemies weaker, but it's a little too late, and their Season 1's kind of burned. But aside from all that, which is kind of like an overall generalization of what's happened relatively, we'll start with our ideology on going into Season 1. We were pretty stoked. We were planning on going into Season 1 as a couple Sorks.
Yeah, we were going to do an ice, lightning, and fire sorcerer, and my plan was going in there, having 10 skill points to play with, max potions, but we went in with nothing. They made us redo the map completion stuff.
So I'll play devil's advocate here. So we only had to redo the dungeons, the side quests, the strongholds, and the gathering of waypoints. The dungeons, the side quests, and the gathering of, or the strongholds, not the gathering waypoints, the strongholds, we already knew we were going to have to redo. We already knew if we weren't keeping anything from those, we have to redo them at the beginning of the season, which was fine.
Which I just thought meant, oh, we just have to go get them again. And it was like, that's fine. What I apparently didn't understand is they made us redo what they call Renowned, which gave us those bonuses, which just made the game at the early beginning again seem like a drag.
Which, it was a drag, but Double T went in not fully understanding that information, whereas I went in knowing that information. So essentially, instead of starting with our 2 bonus skill points per each section of the map, which is 10, and then our extra 20 Paragon points and our max potions, we just went in with max potions and 5 of the 10 skill points. Which to me wasn't too much of an issue. It was just very tedious and another time sink, which will happen again next season if they don't change it, and I'm hoping they do. But he went in as an Ice Sork, or he was going to go as an Ice Sork. I was going to go as a Fire Sork. We were going to have a 30 win in as a Storm Sork. But then things kind of fell apart because they nerfed Fire Sork heavily. They didn't really nerf Lightning Sork and Ice Sork too much, just a little bit kind of here or there. But then we ended up changing. Double T decided to instead go a Lightning Sork for the movement around.
Yeah.
I went as a Fire Sork. We started playing, and just me and him alone, teaming up and doing some dungeon runs, going through the new storyline for Season 1 that they introduced. I was doing basically no damage. It was noticeably bad how terrible Fire Sorcerer was at the start of the game.
We knew it was bad when I was the one doing the most damage.
When you were doing more damage than me, I was like, yeah, this build sucks. So we played it for a while. I think we got to level 40 or so before I was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore, and I switched, or 30 maybe. But we did it for a while, and then I just ended up saying this isn't worth it, and I switched to Druid, which now I'm going a Werewolf Poison Druid. And we leveled my character back up to catch up with him. Finished, got to World Tier 3 and World Tier 4. And it was so much better. We were clearing dungeons like it was nothing.
Yeah, you outpaced me again.
I did outpace you pretty heavily again, but that's also just because I play more often than you do.
But I'm the one doing 1 million damage now.
Ooh, okay, we'll get into that in a minute, because that's going to be a heated debate. So the storyline of Season 1 is essentially after you defeat Lilith, if you haven't played Season 0, the main storyline, spoilers, it is what it is. You should know by now. Everyone pretty much knows. You defeat Lilith, whatever, go on through it, and then essentially once you do that, a plague, I guess would be the best way I could describe it, spreads through Sanctuary that creates these malignant hearts that you essentially go and defeat these malignant monsters to get their hearts, and then use those as a buff to your character. Each one doing different things. You have Devious, which gives you kind of a support-esque buff. Brutal, which is more defensive. Vicious, which is offensive. And then Wrathful, which is more of a superpower. And where that comes into the story is one of the Wrathful Hearts has this effect where whenever you critically strike an enemy, for a certain amount of time, all damage that it would be dealt is absorbed, and then at the end of the duration, it explodes, dealing that damage to itself and outward to any enemies within its vicinity. Which we didn't think would be as good as it is. Double T got it on his Sorcerer build, who, mind you, is 15 levels lower than me and our third.
It was 20 levels.
Was it 20 levels at the time when we figured this was happening?
When we started...
Noticing.
Are we lagging?
Yeah, so me and our third thought that we were essentially just lacking, because we noticed enemies weren't taking damage. We kept getting this immune pop-up on enemies where it's just immune, 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 and then it would go away after a couple seconds. We'd keep doing damage, and then it'd just be immune again. And we were so confused. Because at the end of this immune duration, enemies would just start randomly taking a giant chunk of damage. And we knew it wasn't me or our third because we knew what our damage was. We weren't doing giant chunks. So the only person it could be was Double T on his Sork. And it was mind-blowing. We had no idea for days. Finally, I think it was me and you going through a dungeon, right?
Yeah.
We were just playing through a dungeon, a nightmare dungeon randomly, and all of a sudden it clicked on me because Double T had hit some enemies, then teleported away to hit other enemies. In the meantime, I was still hitting that group of enemies to finish them off, and I noticed, they're not taking damage at all. And then they just exploded into an amount, just died instantly. And I was so confused, because Double T was so far away on the screen that he could not have hit them, which completely nullified our theory that Double T was just randomly doing giant bursts of damage when he was near us. It occurred to me seconds after that I was Double T, as soon as we finished that group of enemies, I was I need you to stop. I need you to open up your inventory screen, and I'm checking your Malignant Hearts. Booked it over there. He had that exact Malignant Heart that does the critical strike explosion damage.
I do wish I unequipped it at that point.
I wish you would have, because it would have confused me even more. Like, I would have had no idea what was going on. But essentially, whenever Double T crits an enemy, that enemy takes no damage from anyone. So it takes no visible damage from anybody on the screen, whether it be your team, whether it be random players that are following you, whether it be your companions. It's all invisible damage that gathers up and then just explodes in one giant damage. So this whole time, me and our third were still doing damage, but all of the damage we did counted as Double T's damage, so he was forging our damage for himself.
It's our damage.
It was communism damage, and it makes me so upset still.
Well, you don't have to worry, because apparently, after the season ends, we lose those malignant hearts.
We do. They will be gone forever, which kind of makes me unhappy, but...
It just makes me go, why should I play and grind this game for 100+ hours to make the most perfect character, and after 3 months that character is useless because it relied on those hearts?
Well, to be fair, I understand your point there, but the characters still, they transfer to the Eternal Realm, so we'll still be able to play them. They just won't be as strong because you just won't have the malignant hearts, but everything else in your build is still going to work the same. The malignant hearts only add buffs in a way, I guess, to your gameplay style, not to like your actual build.
Enough of the hearts give enough buffs that once they're gone, your character will not be the same.
I do wish you at least got to keep like the ones you had in your jewelry, and then you just like, if you got rid of them, you lost them forever, but at least you had it still.
I would be okay with that.
That would at least be something, but it does kind of suck. But it made sense, because Double T was freaking out at one point, and he was like, I did 21 million damage! And he was like, I swear on everything, I did 21 million damage to that guy! And I was like, I don't believe you. Like, there's no way, when you're 20 levels below us, and you're like 35 levels below what we're fighting, that you did 21 million damage. It's not true. Like, I don't believe you. I don't care what you say. There's nothing you could say could make me believe you. Our third person basically was like, no, maybe he did, give him the benefit of the doubt, whatever. And I'm like, fine, I don't care. As soon as I realized what was going on, I was like, yeah, he did 21 million damage one time. He had to have. Like, I don't know how we did that much, but he did 21 million damage, because it takes all of our damage and gives it to you, and it makes me so upset, because it makes my brain the funny numbers that makes my brain happy and produce the happy chemical are now gone when I play the game with you.
They're in my brain now.
I know they are. You're just like, oh man, 600,000 damage, that's nice. Oh man, almost 1 million damage there. Man, you guys are really not putting up your numbers. You're not doing damage right now.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely giving them the whole manager stick now.
Yeah. Oh man, you guys' numbers aren't that high right now. That was a really low number there, and we're just like...
I might have to write you up, guys.
Oh man, I have never wanted to sandbag your character in a boss fight more in my life than this game currently. Is there anything else we need to discuss that we're forgetting about Season 1?
What is the deal with them keeping Lilith the strongest thing in the game?
So, from what I can gather, and I can't, there's no hard evidence confirming or denying this that I'm aware of, but it seems like that the reason that they're essentially buffing or nerfing stuff in the game, but Uber Lilith, which is the level 100 end-all, be-all, hardest fight in the game, they've designed it to where, she doesn't get buffed, she doesn't get nerfed, she doesn't get changed in any way, she's left static. So if everyone's nerfed, she's stronger, just by relativity. If you're buffed, she's weaker, just by relativity. That's how it is. I believe that's the case. They're doing that intentionally because they want everyone to prove that they're the best at the game through that method. In that way, it excludes a majority of the player base from being the top of the top. It's their way of being yeah, if you can do this, you're one of the best players in the game, because only 2% of players can do this. Because you have to solo her for the achievement now. It used to be you could get carried through it. Now you have to solo her because they changed it. So I'm guessing by looking at the titles, want to be able to be okay, that's one of the top 10 players. If you see that title or someone with that horse, because there's a horse cosmetic, There's two different titles, there's prefix, suffix. If you see someone with those, it's like, that's a good player. Is what I assume it is. It's like a rite of passage. I mean, does that answer your question as best as I can?
I mean, yeah. I just think they're just being butts about it.
I mean, yeah, but to be fair, like, if you, now that you know how hard the fight is, because we've tried to do it and it's not worked out very well.
She has like 3 instant AoE attacks
that just
at the beginning.
One-shot you. It's stupid. It's so dumb.
But that's the main reason, like, why are they keeping her so tough when she's already the toughest thing?
I get it.
It's no Elden Ring boss that...
It is no Elden Ring.
Like, oh, I just learned the mechanics. I can dodge at this moment.
You probably can, but even when I've tried to solo it, like, some of those mechanics that are one-shots, I don't understand how I'm dying and how to not die. Because the attack that's hitting me is covering the entire area that you fight her in. And it's not like I have, as a rogue, like, given this is as a rogue. A rogue does not have a button that says, I take no damage for 3 seconds. A rogue has buttons that say, I take less damage, but not I take no damage. And these things are still one-shotting me. And I can't avoid them in any meaningful way that I can find. And I think there's only been like 1 or 2 rogues in the entire player base that have actually beat her solo, and it was because they used, they like abused mechanics of the game to do so. Which you kind of have to do.
Final question.
Yeah.
You gonna play Season 2?
I'm going to give it a try. I mean, like, I still need to get a Necromancer to 100. I still need to get my Sorcerer and my Druid to 100 just for the achievements.
I guess I should rephrase, because the whole reason for Seasons is people to buy the Battle Pass.
Correct.
You buying Battle Pass for Season 2? Based on all of this?
I mean, you don't... So, my answer comes in 2 parts. 1, probably not. The only reason I would buy the Battle Pass is if the cosmetics, the emotes, the like weapon and skin cosmetics, horse cosmetics, emotes, horse trophies, like if those are all cool looking, or at least a majority cool looking, why not? I'll buy it. But you don't have to, because when you buy the Battle Pass, the only thing you unlock is cosmetics or emotes. The actual incendiary ashes or whatever they're called that buff your account, give you more XP, more gold, whatever, those are free no matter what. You just have to unlock them by leveling up the Battle Pass and then getting your character to that level.
See, I'm the complete opposite. It entirely depends on the season cosmetics. It's like, do I even want to play this season?
I'll still play the season. I have no reason not to play the season. I bought the game to play the game. I didn't buy the game to buy cosmetics. The Battle Pass means absolutely nothing to me if the cosmetics aren't good. They're not good, I just don't buy them. I just play the
very
game.
much a character builder.
I mean, yeah, but you have all these seasons cosmetics. You have you have the cosmetics, and I'm gonna expose double T right here. You have the cosmetics that come out once every couple of days that you bought a load of in Season 1, and you currently have 1 cosmetic minimum, 1 backpack minimum, 1 emote minimum, and 1 horse skin minimum for each individual class. And I don't think you can refute that because I've seen it. You have at minimum 1 of each that you've paid for.
Not for Druid.
Okay, you know what? I'll give you not for Druid, but that you also have like.
But that's 3... just because the wolf and the bear don't change.
Yeah, but you also have like 3 for Sorcerer and like 2 for Necromancer and like 1 or 2 for Barbarian, and you have like 3 for what's the other class that I'm missing?
No,
you have 2 for Rogue. I think you have 2 for Rogue.
I only have a backpack for Rogue.
Either way, you've bought a lot of cosmetics. So for you to look at the Battle Pass and be like, oh, the Battle Pass has crappy cosmetics, I'm not even going to play the game, completely defeats the purpose of you buying the cosmetics in the first place from the store that came out. Because why would you buy the Battle Pass cosmetics if they look mediocre when you could just keep your store cosmetics and use those again that look insanely cool and you already have a bunch of? You don't need more cosmetics. Because
when you pay for... I don't know how much it is because we got it free since we paid for the... I paid for the $100 version.
Yes, I know this.
Let's say it's $10.
And you got 20... Real quick, I'm going to interrupt. You paid the $100 version, which was more expensive than the version I paid. Only by like $10 or whatever. Or $30 more, I think,
it's
right?
It's $30 more than...
the base.
No, $40. No, $30. They recently raised it to $70.
Right. Either way, it's more expensive than the base game that you paid to get an emote and 20 tier skips on the battle pass. I didn't get the 20 tier skips on the battle pass, and I still finished the battle pass 20 levels higher than you did before you did.
Yeah, but now I have 2 more emotes than you.
That you never use.
I'm just a real sucker for cosmetics, man. I bought
are,
KFC for like
them.
5 weeks. I don't use those.
You don't even use them.
I watched over 10 hours on Twitch. I don't use those.
So
I paid for a horse on Twitch.
Listeners, this is my fault because I introduced him to MMOs, which he's never played an MMO before. This is his first experience, and he's already gotten suckered into but the cosmetics look so cool, I just want to have them, and then he never uses them.
I'm on track for this being my highest game I spent money for.
And I've genuinely been doing my best to stop him from buying cosmetics, and then I'll randomly look at his character, and his character will have a new cosmetic that he didn't buy while we were playing together, or he didn't say anything. And I just have to look at him with disappointment in my eyes and be like, I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed.
My current record is for a game I probably played for 6 months. $500 into Fortnite.
If we get enough likes and comments on this on future videos, which we'll discuss at a future time, I will reveal how much money I've spent on various games in like ascending order. But we're not talking about that anytime soon because I have to go do the math on all of that. But no, he spends too much money on this game and he doesn't use all the skins. So the way I look at it is I'm glad he enjoyed Season 0. It sucks that Season 1 just feels so terrible to play. Given there are a bunch of buffs coming for Fire Sorcerer, so I might switch back from my Druid once I get my Druid to level 100 back to Fire Sorcerer to like play it and see if the buffs feel great.
If they didn't wait almost an entire month to release this,
yeah,
it might have not been burnt out so fast.
Well, there was also like so the nerfs to all of our classes and the nerfs to like Nightmare Dungeon difficulty and stuff were supposed to come at the same time. But what happened is the Nightmare Dungeons and stuff, something kind of went quote-unquote awry. And they were like, oh, we can't release this part, so we'll just nerf everyone real quick. What they could have done, instead of releasing this giant 600-plus word notes on like nerfs to people, they could have done it in like 2 or 3 different patches and targeted certain things over time. People would have been like, okay, well, this got nerfed, so I'll adjust to this. This got nerfed, I'll adjust to this. This got nerfed, I'll adjust to this. And, just kind of slowly push people towards this meta that they wanted to create over, like, the course of, like, a couple weeks or so, versus doing it all at once, which was a giant whiplash to the community, because it's like, oh, this doesn't work in my build anymore, this doesn't work, this is garbage, can't use critical damage, can't use, like, crowd control damage, I have to switch over to, like, basic attack damage. And it was just a very sudden, like, nope, meta shift. Or they could have just waited until the Nightmare Dungeon nerfs were ready to go and then just released it all at once then, and people would have been like, this is a lot to deal with, we'll figure it out. Probably would have done better.
I will say the one thing I do like, they added a reward for killing the butcher.
They did add a new reward. So the butcher has been my favorite enemy to fight. I still stand by it. I said it before, I'll say it again. If I could have an entire dungeon of nothing but butchers, I would do that dungeon every day, all day long, because I would love it. Maybe not literally all day long, but metaphorically all day long. But yeah, now, so on top of, he can drop a Butcher's Cleaver horse trophy, which looks mediocre at best, but I still have yet to get it out of the hundreds of times I've killed him.
It's not even accurate to the weapon that you get.
It's not, which makes me very curious on, like, did they mess up the code and it's supposed to look like that, but it doesn't? Because they messed up somewhere? Or
no, they would have fixed it. They made it larger.
I mean, I guess, yeah. But then on top of that, they've added a new horse skin that I don't remember the name of the skin for the horse.
It's like Bloody Harvest.
Something like that, but it's basically just like a muscly looking, like, bloody muscle horse, and it's like the best way I can describe it relatively accurately. Which is cool. That's now 2 things only the Butcher can drop. Haven't gotten either of them, because, screw me for wanting to fight the Butcher and collect these things, and I've murdered him hundreds of times and gotten nothing. But I've gotten the Butcher's Cleaver to drop at least. But I think that kind of sums up Diablo.
Yeah.
I mean, Season 1 overall, I'm still playing it. I don't love it as much as I did Season 0, but I'll still play the game because I spent a lot of money, and I think that it has the potential to be better. Now moving over to my favorite topic, we have information on Baldur's Gate 3, which I have been stoked about for years, and it is finally has an official release date coming up extremely soon. So this portion is kind of like a last-minute addition video that I wanted to do before the game came out because I've been so hyped, but I had to get like all the information ready and make sure that it was correct.
Maybe if we didn't take like a month off.
I mean, if we didn't take a month off, we would have had other stuff come out before I released information on this because there's a lot of stuff that's come out about this game. But you have a point, okay? So Baldur's Gate 3...
Which, by the way, we're trying to be back.
We're trying to do this every single week, release another video for you guys. But so Baldur's Gate 3 is a RPG game, multiplayer RPG, released by Larian Studios, which is very well known for their Divinity Original Sin series, which is also another like role-playing game, kind of in the sense of like Dungeons and Dragons, where you take turns, your characters have different classes, all that sort of, all the RPG aspects.
Dungeons and Dragons, you say?
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, trust me, this is very Dungeons and Dragons focused. So Baldur's Gate 3 was originally, I don't remember if it wasn't going to be made or if they were looking at a different studio to make the game. But Wizards of the Coast essentially looked at the Divinity Original Sin series and how much success that series had, and they reached out to Larian Studios and essentially came to an agreement where Larian Studios had full creative control over this game. I think Wizards of the Coast, to the highest extent, maybe had a couple say choices to make here or there, but essentially they gave full creative control to Larian Studios, as far as I'm aware, to make this game. This game has been in production or in development for 6 years now. 6 whole years they have been dedicated to making this game as good as they possibly can. And it's only been in early access since 2020, so only for 3 years, so half of its lifetime.
I heard that before.
What do you mean?
How? You already put worry in my mind. Are you 100% certain this isn't going to be like another Cyberpunk incident?
100%. Larian Studios, if anything, has always kept to their word. I know Double T, have never played any of the Divinity Original Sins games. Yes, they weren't perfect by any means. And what I mean by that is they weren't like the highest quality graphics in the entire world. But at the time it was released, it was one of the best RPG experiences you could get. Not only as a solo experience, but as a multiplayer experience between leveling up your characters, interacting with your friends, interacting with the environment, making different choices that affected the outcome of the game. It was a beautiful game. If you haven't played it, highly recommend that series. But anyway, so they gave this right to make this game over to Larian Studios, basically saying, you guys have creative control, do what you want, make it as good as you possibly can. Here's a whole bunch of resources to start you out with. And the team went in and they started it. As the game continued to progress year by year, they got access to more equipment. They got access to more employees, I guess is the way you would say it, but team members is more really what they go for, because they're not... Everyone has their own kind of say that they've been able to put into the game to make it better. And the whole reason that it's been in early access for 3 years is because they kind of noticed that they really needed, at least to my experience, more funding to make the game better. And they needed people to beta test it and all that stuff and test all their classes and changes. But after 6 years of development, the full release was supposed to be on August 31st for PlayStation and computer, like PC. But they essentially announced it not too long ago that the full release for PC is coming out August 3rd, which is here in not too long. Whereas the one for PlayStation is not coming out till September 6th, because they have to port it from PC over to PlayStation and get all the changes and stuff they need to do. So I'll get to play it a whole month before anyone on PlayStation does, which I'm excited for. It is fully based on the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition rule set. Every aspect of the game is based on that specific rule set for Dungeons and Dragons. That Wizards of the Coast is basically here you go, here's the game, full creative rights, based off of 5th edition. Good luck. It's based essentially right after Baldur's Gate 2 by some number of years. There has been a lot of drama around this game with some more information that I'll come through with. But overall, the drama is very much deserved for these other AAA companies. So right off the bat, the game is going to be releasing with 11 separate races. Each one's going to have like their own sub-races that you can pick that kind of change your gameplay and like your stat loadout and stuff. But the 11 races are essentially, we've got humans, halflings, dwarfs, elves, half-elves, drow, gnomes, tieflings, Githyanki, dragonborn, and half-orcs.
Okay.
Pretty big amount of races. Each one having sub-races, that's more than like probably double that amount. Then we've got the 11 classes that you also get to pick from. So you pick your race, you pick your sub-race, then you get to go in and pick your class, which you've got the cleric, fighter, ranger, rogue, warlock, wizard, druid, sorcerer, barbarian, bard, and the newest edition, paladin.
Also math, history, science.
God. We also have monk that I apparently forgot to put on my list here. So I guess there's technically 12 classes because monk got released a little bit later. So with this, having 11 races, multiple sub-races, and 12 different classes to choose from enables you to play in any playstyle that you could possibly think of. The only kind of weird nuance is that the original level cap, so for early access, you could get up to level 4, and then I think they increased it to 5 towards the end of early access because people wanted to play around with their level 5 skills.
Is this like actual D&D where the highest level is 20?
Yes, the highest level is 20, but by the time you hit level 20, you're essentially a god. That's how strong your character is. But what they've done is the level cap was 4, they increased it to 5. Then they said that the level cap on full release was going to be level 10 because adding in certain spells and characteristics and stuff up towards the higher levels was just way too convoluted and they already have a massive game. But they wanted people to play around with the level 6 spells that you don't get until level 12. Like some of the level 6 spell slot stuff. So the new level cap is 12 out of 20, so we're missing 8 level caps, but maybe if we're lucky they'll release something like that. And given, just like Divinity Original Sin, this game already has hundreds of mods for it and the game's not even fully released. So by the time the game's actually released, we're probably going to have millions of different mods that allow you to go up to level 20 and you don't even have to worry about it. And it's all created by members of the community that actually love the game and are dedicated to making these mods in a way where they work perfectly.
Even a Thomas the Tank Engine Dragon mod?
That could be a thing. I'm not even joking. That genuinely is a thing in Divinity Original Sin, I'm pretty sure. Just like Skyrim. Just like your Skyrim.
That's what I'm thinking of right now.
Yeah, I figured. So when you load in this game, you pick your race, you pick your sub-race, you pick your class, you pick all your spells and your history, and you create your character to look like how you want them to look like, and there's a varying amount. Even to the extent where you can play like a really buff wizard or a really skinny barbarian. Like, they've added that sort of in-depth character creation. But when you load in, you start into the beginning of the campaign with your custom character, or, and this is a big or, you can play as one of the origin characters. So not only could you play as a custom character and have them on your team for the storyline, you could play as an origin character, which there's actually 6 now. There was 5, but they add a 6th one that's only coming out in the full release, I believe, unless it's in like the last month or so of the early access. But we've got Asterion, the High Elf Rogue, which is also a vampire, if you've played the early access. We have Gale, the charming human wizard. We have Lae'zel, the rough and tough Githyanki fighter. We have Shadowheart, the mysterious half-elf cleric. You've got Will, the charismatic human warlock. And Karlach, the newest one, who is a very, very strong tiefling barbarian. who recently joined. I don't know much about their background story specifically, but the rest all have in-depth background stories. Each character provides you with like a brand new side quest line that's basically acts as a main quest line.
Oh, okay.
Because you have to solve theirs in order to like get further in your relationships with them. It has been released. There is given roughly 174 hours worth of just cinematics in the game. And these cinematics are in-depth to the highest degree. Like, they are almost movie quality. Like, even just seeing the early access of these cinematics, where they were, like, still kind of rough, they are beautiful. And given how it's going to look, because it's not just like they went in and digitally created it, they use actual actors to act out the scenes with, like, the weird, like, dot suits you see on, like, what the Hulk would wear.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane.
That's been pretty common lately.
Yeah. It makes it more realistic with like the movements of the characters, and it works out really good. Looks great. So there's about per average playthrough, there is about 70 to 100 hours of gameplay. Obviously, this could vary because some people might spend more time exploring, some people might just be booking it through to the end of the quest line and complete it really early. But on an average playthrough of someone just exploring the game and having fun, about 70 to 100 hours, which is a lot of game time for a playthrough. However, the catch to that is, as Larry...
What you just heard is a piece of paper he's been reading off of.
Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. This is a lot of information. I had to write down a lot of quotes to make sure that what I was saying wasn't incorrect. As Larian's director of publishing, Michael Dowse, Dowse, I hope I'm saying that correctly or pronouncing it correctly, tweeted... oh no, they found the 17,000 number. And this was tweeted because Crystal Ding, one of the game's lead writers, revealed that there are 17,000 ending variations. Given Larian Studios made it clear that some of these, if not a good portion of these, are going to be minor background changes, they haven't been able to provide players, like incoming players, with like an exact number of very hugely different endings.
Like, instead of having a tree background, it has a rock background, right?
Or you might have a character that may be missing an eye, and this time he's not missing an eye because you did something different. Or maybe you have a character that's dead, but now they're not dead. There's different.
We're talking about like major difference endings that they can't tell us.
Yeah, so the 17,000 is based off of minor differences where, maybe they're missing an eye, maybe they're not, maybe someone's got their pet bear, maybe they don't. Minor differences. They haven't been able to give us an exact number of major difference endings because there's so many that they can't even efficiently count them. Whereas with the minor differences, they can just go through and it's like, okay, this is the number of endings we've created overall versus majors. So I would say a good estimate that I'm hoping is correct, or at least slightly accurate, is out of the 17,000 minor endings, we've got 8,000 major endings. Maybe even 10,000 if I'm really pushing the number. But given, let's say even if there's 8,000 major endings that are all very different based on how you play, at 100 hours a piece, if you're averagely playing, we'll even go 80 hours a piece, that's 64,000 hours of in-game time you can spend on this game whenever you have free time. Because it's not like an MMO. There's no grind to it. You play the game for the enjoyment. And then one last thing I wanted to touch on, which we'll go to the AAA company's drama. So with this game, the amount of playtime, the amount of different play options, play styles, the cinematics, the amount of time they've invested into it, the amount of money, the amount of player feedback they've taken into account and improved on stuff that they weren't originally planning on improving on. AAA companies, such as Blizzard and stuff, have been firing at this company being like, this should not be the new standard of gaming. This is just an exception to the rule. No one should expect this from us. Everybody that plays video games and enjoys video gaming as a hobby, as a lifestyle, whatever they may do, a career, should be pushing back at these AAA companies saying that this is the new standard. If a gaming company like Larian Studios, who started this out with, I think they had less than 100 people at the start of their 6 years, or around that number, after 6 years can push out a AAA game that is so overly hyped, it has the entire gaming community up and excited, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed for this brand new game experience to come out with thousands upon thousands of hours of just different stuff they can do, from simply just carrying people around to jumping randomly to exploring different parts of the maps in ways that you wouldn't think you could. Every AAA company can do this with their games, and also release it as a full game, and not, here's the basics of the game. Maybe in a couple months we'll give you a patch. Maybe in a couple years we'll give you an expansion that was already going to be in the game, but like we're going to make you pay extra for it. This is the full game. Everything in this game is finalized. Maybe we'll get an expansion, but I highly doubt it. Usually when Larian does extra content to the game, you most likely have it in the form of like a mod that's already in the game that someone from the community has made.
See, that's why I only trust Nintendo and indie games now.
But that's the problem. You only trust Nintendo and indie because they released the full game, correct? And it's playable. It's perfect to what they explained, right?
Yes, you're able to play it on day one without
like major bugs.
Major bugs.
There's probably tiny little bugs and glitches that happen
fun
because like
little bugs here and there.
But it's nothing game breaking.
No.
Like Cyberpunk had, or No Man's Sky, where the game was literally just not fun. There was nothing to do. This game is releasing with the promise that you will be able to play the entire game pretty close to perfectly. And when it actually releases, if it's like that, every single AAA gaming company should be held to that exact same standard. No ifs, ands, or buts, because they have the resources to do it. They have the money to do it. If they pay their gaming creators the actual amount they're worth for the skills they have, they could make games like this. Instead of in 6 years, they could probably make it in like 3 or 4 years minimum, or maximum, I guess technically. They could probably do it in a couple years if they really invested in paying their people for the work they can do, and enforcing on themselves the ideology of like, our games should be perfect, so that when people pay for our games, they love it. There's no complaints. They are absolutely over the hills, madly in love with this game.
Or just make an anime about it, and then people play the game.
And then people play the game and they realize the game sucks because the game's still glitchy as heck. Like, playing early access, I'll give them. Early access, I played it for like the first year of early access, and then I stopped because I played through it so much that I was like, I need to wait, because when they ever announce that the game's fully coming out, I need to have a fresh mindset. It was buggy. There was a lot of glitches. There was a lot of you'd have cutscenes where like your character would be off in the distance, or like you'd have your head turned or whatever. As I played for that first year, it got better and better and better, where less of those bugs were popping up, and that's just the first chapter getting tweaked with. Like, who knows what they've done to the rest of the game that hasn't even been touched by people, that people just are perfecting because they're looking at the feedback of the community. Yeah. Essentially, overall, that every AAA game company should be held to this new standard if this game is as perfect as it honestly is going to be, and I fully believe it to be. But I would like to open up Double T to any questions he may have about anything that has to do with this game.
How long till I get a crossover skin of Critical Role? If you guys don't know, he really hates crossover skins.
If anyone wants to know, this is an RPG based on a single 1 to 4 player experience that will not have skins that you can buy. There is no transactions for this game other than buying the original game, as every game should be, no matter what.
But crossovers.
Next question, a real question about this game that I've been waiting years to play, that I am passionate about, that you just insulted to my face.
So, they released a trailer at a awards or Comic-Con something, where it showed you're able to do a lot of stuff with romance.
Yes, so I knew this question was going to come up, and yes, he's referencing the trailer where you get to do it with a bear. No, actually, you are the bear. That's the thing, is you are the bear in that scene. Because the other person was Asterion, who is one of the other characters. Actually, wait, no, because that might have been Asterion with Halsin. So you may or may not be the bear, depending on your thing. Either way, there are 8 romance options that I have been made aware of. Obviously, 6 of them are the origin characters: Asterion, Gale, Lae'zel, Shadowheart, Will, Karlach. And these are based on, as you do things in the game, because you can only have 3 people in your party at a time on top of you, with you, God, phrasing. Every time you make a choice when talking to any NPCs, doing something with a way you like go about solving an issue affects their mood towards you, whether it's up or down. Like, for example, if you interact with Lae'zel and give her a positive feedback, Shadowheart's going to dislike you more because she's racist against Githyanki. And I'm not even joking. That's literally a mechanic in the game. Is she is racist against Githyanki. Actually, a lot of people are because they're not great people. But either way, if you talk to, like, Gale and you are like, oh, yeah, we're going to save these people, Asterion might not be happy with you because these people might be trying to hurt him and he wants them dead. So his reputation with you will go down, so he'll be less likely to be romantic with you. The other two that we know of so far are Halzin, who is the main druid of this druid grove that you encounter in the first act of the story that was in early access. He's extremely insane once you actually unlock him as like a teammate, but he'll be one of the romance options you could get if you don't get him killed, or enslaved, or his whole grove murdered. Because there's a lot of ways you can piss him off, and you have to be very careful about how you go through it. The other one is Minthra, who actually, upon reading into it, because you had kind of mentioned this, she is an elf, not really a vampire, but she's one of the chosen, or the, what are they, like the true, or whatever. You only get a one-night stand with her. That's what you get. You get a one-night stand. It's not a continuous relationship. It's a one-night stand with her for a cutscene. And you only get that if you fully dip into the evil side. And what I mean by that is, as you play this game and you're trying to complete this objective that is saving yourself from these tadpoles that were essentially put into your head by these Cthulhu-esque beings, or mind flayers, I guess is the correct term, you can either fully dip into being a pure good player, saving everyone, doing every good choice, not stealing, paying for everything, whatever. You could be a neutral, where you do some stealing, you save people, you're just kind of playing how you want to play. Or you could dip into the full evil, where you do everything you possibly can to make your character a pure evil, whether it be destroying the grove, or saving the bad guys, or turning against your own teammates, or using the people around you to better yourself and not help them out in any way. Like, there's a lot of ways that you could just play this game as a purely evil character. And then you could just be like, yeah, I don't want to be evil anymore. And you can change your mind halfway through and completely change it around if you decide to.
Like that Star Wars game.
What?
Like Knights of the Old Republic.
I never played that, so I have no idea.
It's one of the oldest games I remember playing where good and bad choices mattered.
This one, every choice you make matters. From stealing in front of people, to saving an old lady, to turning against an old lady. Every single choice you make in this game will affect your outcomes and other ways that people view your character. Even just the race you select, the class you select, the sub-race you select, will affect the way that people actually view your character in the game, because it's set as if you're in an old-timey situation, where certain races, obviously, will be looked more favorably upon or not. Certain classes, if you're like a paladin, people will respect you more because you usually represent justice. Whereas if you're a warlock, people might not like you as much because that deals with dark magic, and they don't like dark magic all the time.
Anything else?
That sums it up, unless you have any more questions.
No.
That touches everything I was excited to touch about this game that I've been waiting 6 years to play.
No, I think that's it. Important lesson that this is definitely not the standard.
Whoa.
Goodbye.